Let me tell you the tale of my interaction with one of these entitled parents I've only ever read about on here. It's not as dramatic as some of the tales on here, but I was almost excited to meet one out in the wild. I was beginning to believe they were born of myth and Reddit legend. I guess when you live in the countryside, where sheep and cows are more plentiful than people, the chances of meeting one are slim. Now my son, 5, and I, F, 39, are multilingual. I speak English natively and what I like to call toddler Polish. I left Poland at a young age and grew up down under. My son speaks English at home and German at school since we live in, Germany. He's native with both. During a stay in Warsaw, my old stomping grounds, I, for some inexplicable reason, decided to buy 19 kilos, 41 freedom units for those in the States, of Duplo for my cousin. When she told me she was going to gather all the Duplo from her family's homes, some of which dated back to the early 90s, and sell it, I jumped at the opportunity to buy it. I didn't mention to her that I had been low-key eyeing that conveyor belt piece that my son so enjoyed playing with the last time we visited her home. But here's the kicker. She wanted to sell it all in one go, and all is what I bought, as well as an extra suitcase and luggage allowance to get all these damned blocks home. Well, after hours of playing suitcase Tetris, I managed to pack the Duplo in our luggage. Everything had Duplo in it. No bag was left unscathed. So when we checked our larger suitcases and made it to our gate, what did we do? We found a spot on the floor, whipped out some Duplo, and my son proceeded to do what 5-year-old boys do: lay his Lego space crew onto the conveyor belt and send them plummeting to their doom, aka the bed from the Dulpo playhouse I whipped out from my handbag. He was having a great time, allowing me to zen out for a glorious few minutes to drink my coffee in relative peace after what was a stressful morning and journey to the airport. Alas, the moment I noticed the snotty little girl watching my son play, my spidey senses tingled, for she had nothing to play with, and her mother was on her phone, paying her no attention. Though cute, I don't necessarily like children. I'm an introvert, and children have big energies that are incompatible with my analog dinosaur brain. The love I have for my son naturally overrides this setting, as do my nibblings, though barely, as their chaos is a whole other story. Things proceeded to get awkward as the snotty girl, 3, approached and watched my son play with the miniature airport, space, prison, battleship he had constructed in the time it took me to blink. Last month, he called himself a Lego artist. Believe it, this kid is going places. The snotty girl stared at my son for an awkward 5 minutes as he continued to do his thing, moving his blocks closer to himself when he eventually noticed her watching him. Eventually, the girl went to her mother, and after a brief exchange of words, I was face to face with an entitled parent. I just didn't know it yet. The first step was to establish a language of communication. The mother to me in Polish. Do you speak Polish, German, or maybe Romanian? Me. Polish. The mother kneels beside my son while holding her daughter and starts speaking to my son in Polish. This annoyed me. You want something from my kid, you ask me. Me. He doesn't speak Polish. The mother, looking confused. Why not? Me. Because we don't live here. He speaks English and German. The mother to the snotty girl. You can ask him to play in German. Too shy to ask, the snotty girl continued to chew her fingers as she shook her head. The mother. Can my daughter play with your son? I turned to my son, knowing and honestly hoping that he would say no. All that snot running from the girl's nose and saliva-drenched fingers opened a window into my future, one I wasn't willing to risk. Me to my son. Offspring, this child wants to play with you. Would you like to play with her? Without looking up from his toys, my son shook his head. Me to mother. He said no, sorry. The mother to my son. Can she play with you? We didn't bring any toys. My son ignores her and continues to play without acknowledging her. He doesn't like strangers, and I don't force him to have uncomfortable interactions with anyone, let alone passing strangers at an airport. Even as a baby, I knew there was no mistaken newborn swap at the hospital, for my son had inherited my resting grumpy face. The mother must have taken offense to the curmudgeonly expression that is my son's face. Me to the mother, hoping she'd take the hint. He doesn't want to play. The mother, observing my son. You should teach him to share. And there it was. I knew who I was dealing with. Flame on. Claws out. Avengers assemble. Me to the mother. And you should pack toys. The mother. Is he autistic? I ignored the intrusive thoughts. No. The mother. Then why isn't he looking at me? Me. You're a stranger invading his personal space and trying to take his stuff. The mother. No, I work with autistic kids. Me. Okay then. I glared at her, waiting for her to leave, but she kept her eyes on my son. The mother. Does he smile or make eye contact? Me. Yes. The mother, eyeing my son. Does he play normally with other children? Me. With those he deems worthy of his invaluable time? Yes. The mother, still trying to get my son's attention by waving her hand in front of his face. Are you sure? Me. Yes, he doesn't want to play. Now back off. The mother finally looked at me. My resting, grumpy face was no longer resting and was genuinely grumpy, spurring her to grab her daughter and leave. The moment they were gone, my son looked at me and smiled. Son. She was rude. Me, shrugging. If you say so. My son asked what autism was, but since he had started watching Extraordinary Attorney Woo with me, I didn't have to explain too much, as we had covered the topic before, but the word didn't click with him at the time. Of course, we saw this woman again. She was on our flight and looked mighty unhappy the entire time. When we were coming in for landing, the hostess even stopped by her row and asked her to put her daughter in her seat and put on her seatbelt. The mother. But she has a fever. She'll cry. The look on the stewardess's face was worthy of a chef's kiss. Utter perfection. It was as if her very soul did an eye roll from within, and I felt my soul mirror her response. I felt her pain. After a few stern words from the stewardess, the mother put her daughter in her seat, put her seatbelt on, and wow, not a peep out of the girl as we landed. We made it to the luggage carousel, and our bags were delayed by 30 minutes, so we found a quiet spot in the corner, away from people, where my son could ride his suitcase around without getting in anyone's way. He happily pretended to be a race car while riding around columns, leaving me to my writer's brain going haywire. I envisioned the delay of luggage was due to my suitcases exploding on the tarmac, sending copious amounts of colorful Duplo blocks, animals, trucks, and people figurines scattering all over. This naturally caused chaos for the airport staff, who had to clear it all before resuming their actual work. I feared this might happen while packing, but luckily, the suitcases eventually arrived, closed and unscathed, and I successfully smuggled 3 generations worth of Duplo blocks from Poland into Germany. Meanwhile, the mother continued to keep staring at my son as if to determine whether he was indeed autistic, as she suspected. Meanwhile, he was having a wonderful time riding around on those pristine airport floors, perfect for suitcase racing, with a big smile on his face while she waited for her luggage. And yes, I do, on occasion, call my child offspring. I also refer to him as a child, son, kiddo, progeny, mini-me, small fry, broodling, kittywink, scion, munchkin, and anything else I can scrape from my demented brain, the eloquence of which, depending entirely on how caffeinated I am at the time. He loves it. Live long and prosper, and peace out.